how many piranhas do I need to devour a dead body? Asking for a friend.
He's like Pablo Escobar of the fish world.
He had tigers in the backseat of his car.
I promise it's not illegal.
So they asked us to talk about monster fish today. This is my partner, Kevin.
How you doing?
You spent $100,000 on one stingray. I know you're not very happy with that story, but you want to share it with them?
We were bringing Bosemani stingrays out of Suriname. It was a new market that just opened up. We pretty much had full control of that market. We were selling to Asia, selling to everywhere. And all of a sudden, an albino Bosemani popped up. And that's the only one in the world. And at that time, albino stingrays were going for ridiculous money. Albino pearls were going for like $50,000 a piece. Albino black diamonds, we're going for like $80,000 a piece. So in my mind, I'm doing the math. And if I get my hands on this albino stingray, I'm going to be a millionaire. I can retire. I don't have to do any of this crap anymore, right? So I was willing to gamble everything I had on this ray. But the people in Suriname and the damn internet, social media, he put it out there for the world to bid for it. So now I'm bidding against some of the richest people in Asia for these fish. Now I'm thinking, how deep do I got to dig? What am I willing to risk? What am I willing to gamble? The bidding started, it went up to like $80,000, $90,000. I'm thinking, wow. But if I do the math, if I breed this thing and I can sell the babies for $50,000, $60,000 a piece, I'm still good. I had an advantage over everyone else though. I was already established in the Suriname market because I was doing all the other stingrays. So I used scare tactics. I went to the seller and I said, who I am, I'm here. I have all the money available right here. Even if somebody outbids me, they're not going to send you $100,000. They don't know who you are. How are you going to make this deal happen? How are you going to receive money from overseas into your bank account, $100,000, without the government thinking you're some kind of drug dealer? And you're going to have to pay taxes on that. So I used everything I could think of to scare them into selling it to me because I had the money there already. I made my final bid. I bid $110,000. I said, this is my final offer. Cash today. You don't have to deal with any wires, nothing at all. It's right there. And on top of it, they were brokering the sales to other locals as well. So there was a middleman who was a big pain in my butt, still trying to bring in other offers. I had to give him 10 grand on the side to shut up, get out of my way, and make this deal happen. So with all that all together, it worked and I was able to get it. That was one hurdle. Then the last hurdle was you're still dealing with third world country and everyone knows about this fish. And I was afraid after we pay the money, take the fish, somebody was going to try to ambush my guy and mug him and steal the fish. So he had to go. And he went in there strapped, walking out, like making sure no one's following. He showed me a photo of the fish in between his legs with a gun like that. I was like, this was like the most Pablo Escobar thing I've ever done in my life.
Now, was it worth it?
Yeah, it was definitely worth it.
But when you were able to breed it, the stingray market had already. So he never made his money back. That's the moral of the story. We opened a facility in Thailand and one in China so we could export ourselves. And our partner there, it's almost like he's like Pablo Escobar of the fish world because every day he's on his phone and he's just getting offered a bunch of stuff. We were going to the market and our car broke down. As we're in the mechanic, somebody sent him a video of a platinum blue monsieur. So he's like, we got to go get it. We got to go get it. I don't care what price it is. We got to go get it. So cars fixed. We went to this dude's house. It was very, very weird. And I don't like to show up right away with a camera on because I wouldn't feel comfortable if people did that to me. So I had the camera, but I wasn't pointing at him. And he goes, no video. So I was like, oh, what happened? So later they talk and he agreed for us to film a couple of things. Long story short, the fish was not what the video that he sent.
He probably did not expect us to be in the area. It was just coincidence that we were literally only 15 minutes away from where he was. So his plan was probably like what you said was, okay, here's the photo. Send me the money. I'll ship the fish out to you. Okay, and I think also with the stress of shipping, it's going to look more pale and white. So when you receive it, it looks convincing, but you're still a little bit off. So I felt that he did scam us, but we were lucky enough to be there and actually catch him in that lie.
And on the way home, I said, why did he get upset? Like, for us not to film. He said he had tigers on the back seat. I'm like, oh, so this is that type of guy.
I mean, so obviously we got baited to go to that house. And obviously the fact that he didn't want us to film, and later on we found out he had tigers in the backseat of his car, it already shows what type of guy this was.
I'm just glad we were able to leave that because, hey, you know, some areas there's a little tough. I don't think there's really a secret to it. The biggest thing, obviously, you got to have the tank space. You feel like you have a large tank so you can put as many fish as you want. But the problem is you have to do, in our case, for example, you have to do a lot of water changes because the parameters on that water is going to go down. The pH will drop, the ammonia will spike up, and you start having problems. That's, for me, was the biggest problem I had in Florida when I had the 12,000 gallon full of monster fish. Because if I didn't do water changes or, let's say, have a drip coming in with fresh water, the pH will drop and you immediately start seeing the catfish will be the first ones to suffer. They will have red welts on their body, and the moment we did a water change, they would act back to normal. So they'll start eating again. To me, as far as keeping monster fish, that's the number one thing. You got to watch your water parameters 1,000%.
My first recommendation is to start with the biggest tank that you can, given the amount of space you have in your house, whether it be a 75 gallon, 120, 180, whatever. Just go the biggest that you can because it just buys you more time. No matter what, eventually it will outgrow that tank unless you can give it like a 500 gallon tank or a 1,000 gallon tank. Fish keeping in general, the principles are all the same, right? And when you're dealing with monster fish, you're obviously dealing with fish that potentially grow a lot bigger. And a lot of times people will be like, okay, well, I got this red-tailed catfish. It was doing great for 3 months, 4 months in my tank. And now all of a sudden I'm having problems. Why? Because it got to a certain size now that the amount you're feeding is not proportionate to the water volume in that tank anymore. So you either have to up your maintenance or get a bigger tank. As long as you keep those ratios in perspective, you're really not going to go wrong.
What's the best kind of tank for predatory fish? Would it be acrylic, glass, plywood, or fiberglass? Like, what's the best?
In Florida, I had a bunch of glass tanks. And when I was starting, I didn't want to pay, money on brand new tanks. So I was buying every tank you could see on Craigslist. I had 3 blowouts, and all 3 of them were glass tanks. So if you ever buy a glass tank, the first thing you do is you look at the edges of the tank. If it's not clear, and you see bubbles or anything, get away. Don't buy that tank because what happened to me. But acrylic, to me, is much better because if you get scratched, you can fix it. And if you ever have to move, you don't have to call all your friends because they're not going to show up. You can do it on yourself, right? Would you say acrylic is your number one choice?
I definitely prefer acrylic because I always worked alone in the past, or it was just me and Oi. So whenever we had to move tanks, it was just the 2 of us. Acrylic is way, way lighter. Just probably you and your girl can do it, no problem at all. But I'll just name all the pluses of acrylic first. Acrylic also insulates. So it's more energy efficient when you're trying to keep the water warm, whereas glass, the heat passes through really quickly. So, but the downside is acrylic is more expensive, way, way more expensive. And also acrylic is more clear. It looks cleaner, nicer, but it can get scratched up easily. So it really depends also where your budget's at. There's no real preference. Why do people do fiberglass ponds or wood ponds? Everyone's just trying to save money and get the biggest tank they can with the amount of budget that they're working with. So I think that's what it comes down to. If you want to go glass tanks, buy new if you can, so you can avoid that seam problem that Rodrigo was talking about. But if you're handy, you can also reseam it. You can cut out the silicone and reseal it, as long as you don't see that white that he was talking about. That means where it's joined between those 2 pieces is separating. But if that part is clean, you can still always reseal the inner part of the silicone inside. So it really comes down to your situation and your budget.
But if you had to choose, you choose acrylic over glass.
I always like to tell people, if you don't keep the tank environment clean, you're playing God right there, right? So if you're not doing your job, eventually the fish will get sick. Maybe not now. Maybe they were doing great. But then 3 weeks later, a month later, oh, I don't understand. My fish was doing great, and now all of a sudden it stopped eating. But trust me, if you do that water change and clean your filter, everything will come back right away.
One time you actually said this, is like, if you're not doing water changes, it's almost like you staying in your room and doing your releases in your room and not cleaning. Eventually, you're going to get sick. Yeah. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you're in your room and you eat, sleep, poop, everything in your room, and you clean that room only 30% every month, think about the buildup in that room. Will you be able to live in that room? It's going to be disgusting, right? So just think of your fish tank the same way. Routinely keep it clean and you won't have any problems.
You think a fish would be happier in a natural environment or more of like a fake environment, like plastic plants versus real plants? Or
Okay, I'm not a fish, but I would think that
I couldn't tell. Come on.
I think as long as they have some kind of decoration in there, I don't think they can tell the difference whether it's real or fake, other than a pleco that, relies on eating the driftwood. I think they're just looking naturally for shelter and a safe space, and that's what the decoration is for. That's my opinion. See, it's just, having a natural look, wood, plants, and rocks versus, glow in the dark, or fixtures. That's not my thing, but I don't think the fish can tell the difference.
Yeah, I prefer natural. I think just give them the natural environment, where they come from, right? Make them feel more at home.
Can you speak to how you should DIY a filter for predator fish?
If you're trying to do like the most cost effective, he's the guy to talk about this. Come on. But I'll talk about it a little bit because he showed me a lot. I say the cheapest way would be like a garbage can. You can buy it at Home Depot and you fill up with lava rock. But a better way would even be just movable media. If you can add movable media and have it moving. So what happens, what it does is, as the water's going through, it eats the ammonia out of the water, right? And then now you have clean water. You just have to figure out how that media is not going to get sucked into the pipe. But if you could do that, I would say that's probably the best way, the cheapest and best way to do it, right?
Yeah. I guess it's always looking at your situation, whether you want to put the filter below your tank, or is it like a pond setting? Because a lot of people who keep monster fish just does the pool pond thing, right? Then you can make a platform and have that garbage can up top here, right? So you put the pump in the pool pond, a submersible pump, pumping it up, and you probably have to make some kind of crate where you can put some floss, right, to do your mechanical, and then have the movable media underneath there with an air stone so that you can turn that media, and then have a drain on the bottom. But obviously, after you put in that drain, you have to have a standpipe that comes back up to the surface so that the whole thing doesn't drain. It really depends on the style. Or you can just do bio balls and just let the water trickle through and out. So it really depends on what style of filter as well.
But you show me that you prefer the movable media, and why? Because a lot of people here, like me, before I met you, I was like, yeah, we could put lava rock, just let it roll. So why do you prefer the movable media?
So I'm the laziest person when it comes to cleaning filters. So I like to spend the time in setting it up right so that I don't have to spend time cleaning it later. So traditionally you have canister filters, wet dry filters, but no matter what, you have to clean them. Even wet dry filters, you have that sludge that builds up at the bottom over time, and you want to get that stuff out. But with a movable bed, the media is constantly moving. Nothing gets to settle at the bottom of the tank. So that's why I like that process. And you never have to clean it. You don't have to take out all the bio balls, all the lava rock. It's just a nightmare. And you really can set back the biological activity of your tank when you do such a thorough cleaning. So that's why I like that type of style.
One time we had a 1,000-gallon tank full of paddlefish, and we set up overnight with the movable media bed. It was just two filters. If you watch the videos, you can see it. And all it does is just the media is just moving around. And that was enough to keep 500 paddlefish in that tank with no problems at all. But it's funny you talk about filtration, because when I met him, I went to his facility in LA, and everything was like organized and very like automated. And I asked him a question, said, what is the hardest thing? Because my facility was totally different. I'm running hoses and I'm going up and down. I said, what's the hardest thing here for you? He goes, I fall asleep when I'm doing water changes because it's so easy. You open a valve and you sit there and fall asleep. So that was their biggest problem, right?
Well, after I fall asleep and I wake up, and there's water everywhere because I fell asleep. So it was actually not so good. We spent 2 hours vacuuming the water.
I'm wondering about like your filtration systems, if you use like canister filters and like what the benefits are to canister filters versus like hang on the backs and sponge filters.
You're more the filter guy.
All right. To me, filtration all works the same if you understand the principles of it, the nitrifying bacteria and the stages of the nitrification. So it doesn't matter whether it's a under gravel filter, sponge filter, hang on the back, canister, wet dry. As long as you have media or surface area for the bacteria to grow, then it works. When it comes to different styles of filter, I think it comes down to personal preference on how you want to maintain your tank. Wet dry is easy. You just remove that pad, put in a new pad, and you're done. Canisters are a little bit more cumbersome where you have to take it apart, bring it to your sink, not want to spill all the water everywhere, making sure that when you start it back up, it primes. So there's different problems, you know what I mean? And it depends on your bio load, right? So if you have a smaller bio load, then the hang on the backs are nice because they're easy and they can just take it right off the tank, bring it to the sink, and it's a smaller capacity, but it works. So that it comes down to your tank and what you're keeping. Make sense? Okay, perfect.
But for us at the shop, like what is your favorite, for the amount of volume that we're doing, what is your favorite type of filtration for us to do at the shop?
I like to use like a sump style with either micron socks and moving bed. Right, moving bed works the best for me because I don't have to worry about all that sludge that builds up at the bottom of filter because it's constantly being turned over. Nothing builds into it. So as long as you have a mechanical side, whether it's media pad or micron socks, or I like to even use a small mechanical canister filter that catches all the crap. So that's the way we do it, because it's much larger volume and bigger bio loads.
So the movable bed that he's talking about is the movable media. And what it does is, as it's moving around, old bacteria is dying off, new bacteria is being born every day, and that eats the ammonia out of the water. So that'll help you guys maintain.
And you can see on the market now, a lot of sumps incorporate a chamber for moving bed now, whereas in the past it was just bio balls. So if that's something you want to try, I think it works great, in my opinion.
How did you keep water quality when you're having a lot of fish or you're breeding? You're putting a lot of feed in. So are you focused more on the actual mechanical or biofiltration, or are you using more water changes? Or in the past, right? Do you use more water changes for that, basically?
It was actually a pretty good question.
It's going to be a combination of everything, right? For me, I was breeding, so I had to feed every day, sometimes twice a day. If you're just maintaining the fish, I would say you could feed it once a day, minimal, or even some fish twice a day. Twice a day. Once every 2 days, and feed them a little bit more. So just understand what your water volume is and how much food you're putting in there. Of course, the more waste they produce, then the more often you have to clean your filter. If you're just changing water but not cleaning your filter, all that waste is just trapped in the filter, and it's just a big waste bomb in there. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how much water you change, you're not getting rid of the waste. So it has to be both. Keep the filters clean. I know people who come to me and say they have problems, and the first thing I ask is, when was the last time you cleaned your filter? Maybe twice in the last year. I'm like, wow. Okay, can you imagine living in your room and eating and pooping in your own room and just letting that crap pile up in there every day and just cleaning it up? You know what I mean? You can open the window, get all the fresh air you want, but it's still in there. So I always like to make these examples so that people can visualize it and truly understand what the problem is. So a combination of, I would say, clean your filters at least once a month if your tanks are not overcrowded. For us, we clean our filters every other day because our tanks are so heavily stocked, and we change 100% water 3 times a week. So just look at what not saying that you guys have to do that. Okay. Yeah. You look at what your fish is, how big the fish is, how much you're feeding, and come up with a schedule, but a consistent schedule where every once in a while, let's say if you're doing 20, 30% water change every week, That works when your fish are small. But as the fish get bigger, you might have to go to 30%. You might have to go to 40%. You might have to go to 50%. But I also always recommend that at least once a month, do a major water change, like 80 to 90%, just to freshen it up and keep the balance going.
I see some videos people say like, oh, you don't need to do water changes. And I think that it depends on what fish you have, what your filtration is. Because some people just use plants and a big filtration. Yeah, obviously, you have a little fish. You don't need to do water changes. But when you're talking about monster fish, I think you do need water changes because they produce so much waste. And it's like he said, you can take the ammonia out of the water, but all that crap is still going to be in there. So you have to do your job on making that room, like you're talking about, clean again.
When chasing pH for species specific, especially, what do you use beyond, like, I know like basics for driftwood, for lowering, and you add things, but like, what do you find to be the most useful? And do you try to chase pH based on species and origin?
That's actually a really good question. The fish that we buy, like let's say Ultima angels, right? They were really low pH. If you find the right source, they will acclimate that fish to a higher pH and they'll do fine. What I learned, and you can say your part, is you could pretty much have from 7 to 8 pH and 99% of the fish will be fine as long as you acclimate slowly. So the Ultima angels, like I was saying, they already come in from a pH that's 6, 5, 7. Our pH is 7, so we don't have to do anything to it. Just drip acclimate and they're fine. What do you think about pH? Because I was saying, I forgot what I was saying.
I never chase pH. That's something that I think it's worse for the fish because controlling pH is very hard. Once you do a water change or once it's, how can I explain this? Keeping it stable is more important for the fish than anything else. So let's say if you have African cichlids and you're trying to keep the pH high, or he's talking about Ultima angels where you're trying to keep the pH low, or people are trying to breed and say that lower pH is better so that you get better breeding results. Unless you're going for those specific things, in terms of just keeping the fish, I would just take your time, get them to the pH of your natural pH out of your tap. That way, whenever you change water, it's stable. They don't need to have super high or super low pH. It's very difficult because if you want to do it right, you're talking about RO water, stripping everything out of it, and then remineralizing it. But it always changes because if you don't do your water changes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the pH starts to drop and there's all kinds of things, right? So that's the way I like it. In LA, my pH was really high, like 7.6, 7.7, maybe even 7.8. Here in New York, it's 7.0. I do everything the same way.
Here in New York?
Oh, sorry. We're not in New York now, but we are based in New York now. I don't chase the pH. I just try to keep it stable. The problem we have in New York is that the hardness is very low. So the pH tends to crash very easily. So I do have to buffer our water, whether you can use crushed coral to help keep it stable, or now I'm experimenting with different additives like calc water to help hold it, because we keep so much fish in our tanks that if I don't check on it for a day, the pH can crash. So it's very important for us to really, really buffer it. I think that's one of the downfalls in New York. In LA, the hardness was so stable, I can go forever and it wouldn't crash. Right?
But just so you have an idea, in LA, Florida, now New York, we had the same fish without chasing the pH, and they did fine. So I think as long as we do our part, getting the fish already acclimated and settled to the pH that's normal to us here, they'll be fine.
Do plants make a big difference with the water changes and maybe not have to do it as much?
Okay. Yes, plants will help because plants will eat up a lot of the nutrients that are building up in the water. So in terms of the plants can consume the ammonia source that the fish release. They can consume the nitrites and the nitrates, right? But that whole process can also still cause your tank to crash because you're using up all the minerals in the water. So water changes do help to refresh the whole system and remineralize it. But if you want to just solely rely on plants, you probably will still have to add some mineral additives to keep things going. but I've heard that if you have enough plants in your tank, that it can absorb all the ammonia to the point where the biological won't even exist because there's no food source for the bio in the tank. And that's only something I learned not too long ago. I was always, trying to look for a way to not do water changes. I think everyone's looking for that way. But yeah, and I would either keep my water so clean that my plants couldn't survive, and I just couldn't, for the love of God, let my water go bad. You know what I mean? For the plants to thrive. But there is at some point a balance.
Well, also remember when we had one white gar and 3 yellow gars that we got from someone that had a huge planted tank, remember? And when we got them, they got sick right away because their pH was probably so low from all the plants and, dying in the tank and the leaves and all that the fish got sick. They start getting like a weird red spots all over the body because they're trying to get used to clean water.
And what he says there brings up a really good point. A lot of times when you buy new fish and you bring it home and you don't understand why it didn't do well or it died, even though you took your time and you acclimated, it's because your water parameters in your tank was so different from the water parameters of when you bought the fish. You see, and the fish did great in both places, but this is what goes back to what the other gentleman was asking about, the chasing the pH. Your fish got used to this tank over time, over the months of the way you keep your tank and the pH just getting to where it's at, that now the new fish can't take it. And my example is like taking somebody who is used to the tropics and dumping them in Antarctica. You live great in both places, but you just can't adjust. And then when you adjust a fish in that way, they might be okay the first couple of days, but then all of a sudden they just go down. And that's why. So I think it's very important to keep your parameters in your tanks up and stable. So also when you go buy new fish, you're not going to have these problems as well.
Can you keep any algae eaters with puffers?
Yes, I think it's safe to put plecos with those puffers, only because the plecos aren't constantly swimming in the puffer's face, like tempting them to go after them. And same thing, provide rocks and driftwood for the plecos as well. They'll come out and eat, or the plecos might do their job at night when the lights are off. I think it shouldn't be a problem.
We have a friend that has 6 MBU puffers, this big, but they're in a 1,000-gallon tank, so they don't mess with each other. Sometimes during feeding, they're all goes for the same food and they might bite each other, but they won't kill the other fish in the tank. He's got angelfish. He actually added the stingray in there. So I think if you give the fish enough space and enough food, it will eventually leave the tank mates alone. Unless he's just a jerk and, doesn't want anybody else in there.
Also, sometimes it depends on your tolerance for perfection of the fish. Some people want everything perfect. They don't want a nick on their fin. But sometimes that comes with the territory with keeping any type of aggressive fish. You have to expect some sort of damage to happen. As long as it's not deadly to the fish can heal. You know what I mean?
I'm starting a 70-gallon tank and want to know what recommendations would be the best to start off with that.
A 70-gallon tank. 70-gallon tank, semi-aggressive fish.
Yeah, I think cichlids are good. Either the Africans or the South Americans. Discus, parrotfish.
But discus are not semi-aggressive. She wants to see like teeth.
She didn't say that. If you want to see teeth, then you're going like Managuenses and the tougher cichlids where I think you need more space or provide more hiding spaces like driftwood and plants where the more aggressive fish can kind of define their territory. Then they won't come out and attack those other fish that you keep in there. And if those other fish venture into their space, they're going to get a little beating and they'll learn to stay away,
There is one small fish that we ordered before. It's called Fagus maculatus.
Yeah.
It's called Fagus maculatus. It's an aggressive fish. It looks like it has like an alligator mouth and it stays fairly small. It's just very hard to keep it alive. Even when we bring it in, majority of times the suppliers don't know how to ship them. And
African pikes, maybe African pikes, the ODO pikes.
It still gets about a foot though. 70 gallons is a little tiny.
So what would be a beginner cichlid to start off with?
beginner cichlid for what size tank?
Whichever one.
For a 500-gallon tank. Okay. 75. Okay. Would you say like it would be a beginner? So you want aggressive like her? Like you want to see like blood?
I like Geophagus. I like those type of cichlids. They're peaceful. They do have a little bit of aggression, but not so much where I really have to do anything about it. I could just leave them alone. So any type of Geophagus.
It really depends. Like when I get those questions, like people call the shop and they're like, "Oh, what's your favorite fish?" My favorite fish might not work for you, So it's really like what you like. What do you want to see at home? So you want a fish that's gonna show more of like he likes color, he likes beauty. You're like more like him. Yeah, I want to see. Yeah. So I would say Geophagus would probably be a really good bag for you. Like the Savinis, they're very colorful fish. They're beautiful fish that comes out of South America. And you're not going to have to deal with a problem of like picking them out of the tank because of aggression. So I say that's probably your best bet. But for a large one, you probably want to go a little bit bigger on a tank. You can start on a 75, but then eventually 125 for like a group of big geos?
I think you could still maintain them at
125, 125.
75 is enough. But for you would probably like Maniquenses, Cubans, the really aggressive stuff that you can throw like feeders in there and watch them like get devoured, right?
I would never do that. I feed frozen stuff.
How many piranhas do I need to devour a dead body? Asking for a friend.
He's not from Texas because you can't have piranhas in Texas.
All right, so let's do the math. How tall is this body? Or 5 feet, 5'6", like my height?
I think 6 piranhas is enough for him.
All right, so I would go with like a 300-gallon tank, right? A group of 50 8-inch piranhas.
Don't feed them all at the same time.
Yeah.
You're going to have to clean the tank.
Well, are we trying to maintain the tank or are we trying to get rid of the body? What's the goal here? If it's get rid of the body, just dump it in there. Then, yeah, I think those 58-inch piranhas can take care of it in one meal.
So, honestly, our goal, because you can't have piranhas in New York, which just doesn't make any sense. You can drive to Jersey, get a piranha, and go to New York and say, I got a piranha. But we can't sell piranhas in New York or even have it at the shop. Our goal is when we build the exhibit to be able to get a permit just to be able to show them, because there is a lot of like really amazing species that even when I went to the Amazon, we were in an area where the guide was like, hey, watch this. And he just put the line with the hook in the water. Piranha. Wasn't one after another. But if you put your hand in the water, they wouldn't do anything. So it was the shiny of the hook that was making the piranha attack because he looks like the scales of a fish, which is very interesting. But yeah, I put my hand for a second and said, yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
But would you suggest for anybody to have a quarantine tank?
I always think that if you have the space to do a quarantine, we've had customers say, hey, I prefer to buy from you guys because I watch your videos. I see how healthy, how great your fish are. But things still happen during shipping. Short of you walking into the store and taking it, right from my hand to your hand, we're still shipping it to you through UPS, whether it's hot, cold, the box getting tossed around, the fish gets weak, their immune system, so they can still pick up something. So I always still say quarantine when you can, right? If you have no choice, then you have no choice. But it's a good practice to do.
Yeah, I agree. Because a lot of times fish will come in weak. Even though they're healthy, they come weak from shipping. Now you put them in your tank with all the fish that have been there. Those fish attack that little guy, and then you lose him, and then you call us the next day like, oh, the fish is dead. Well, it wasn't us, So if you can have a quarantine tank, it's 100%. I would recommend.
Do you guys have any experience with some of the like brackish fish, like bumblebee groupers, and sometimes you even see like trevally in stores, and there or some like the mangrove stuff like that, and they'll keep them in fresh water when they're little. Do you have experience with those fish, and how do you take care of them as they continue to grow?
That was actually a good question. So bumblebee groupers and the fish that you're talking about, they're saltwater. When they're small, they migrate to freshwater or brackish. We were able to get them in freshwater, but as they grow, the bumblebee grouper, the number one thing they need is magnesium. So if you can add that to the water, that will help a lot. Yeah, or a little bit of salt. Believe it or not, you can have all freshwater fish and still make that water brackish, and they would be fine. Because every breeder that we talk to, like West South America or Asia, they add salt to the water because it kills all problems that they don't want to deal with. Instead of adding medicine, salts are much cheaper. So I'll tell you guys a quick story that happened to me when I was in Florida. I had a flowhorn, and overnight it covered in ick. The whole fish was covered in ick, and I had a saltwater tank. So I'm like, I put him in there in the net, and I forgot. I'm a bad person. 20 minutes later, I remember because I was talking to a customer. When I pulled out, everything was gone. So the salt water killed all the freshwater parasites. So I was like, that's weird. And on my saltwater tank, because I had a guy that was pumping water from the ocean and bringing it to the shop, whatever that water had, it came in with a parasite that would have killed everything. The things that would live were sharks and groupers. But any other fish I added to the tank, in 3 days, it would get eaten alive by these parasites. Nobody could figure out what it was. I'm not a saltwater expert. I just wanted to have sharks. One day, I left the water running to fill up the tank, and I used to fill it up with fresh water. Well, I forgot. The next day, I come back. Water's all over the floor. The tank is more fresh water than salt at this point. The sharks, groupers, eels, everybody's still alive, but all the parasites die. So I think there's probably a secret that a lot of big companies don't want us to know, but you can do the salt dip or the freshwater dip with both types of animal. I had a small grouper that came in from, I can't remember if I bought it from a trench ship at the time, and I just put it in freshwater for 10 minutes. The amount of flukes that came out of that fish, it made your skin like itch. Just, you could see them crawl out of the eyeballs, crawl out of the skins, through some freshwater. I didn't even have to put medicine in it. So is that something that you think it works for stingrays as well, or probably not?
It depends. I mean, stingrays aren't really that susceptible to parasites, and they can tolerate salt very well. I think even though there's small amounts of like protozoan parasites that could be on the ray, that's microscopic, it doesn't really affect them because their skin is so tough.
It's like sharks.
Yeah, like sharks, basically. But to answer your question, you were on point. I think you knew the answer already. Certain trace elements need to be kept in the water. It doesn't necessarily have to be salt or brackish, but some element of those minerals to help keep the fish or help give the fish what they need to survive in fresh water.
I also had an Atlantic tarpon that I imported as an endotarpon. And for 5 years, that thing turned out like 4 feet in full fresh water, and he lived fine. I didn't have any salt in that water.
Tarpon doesn't need it at all. Yeah.
So some fish do, some fish don't. But I think that, like I said, even if you make your tank brackish and you have arowanas, peacock bass, it might even be beneficial for them as well.
Have you ever tried keeping octopus?
I did. I had the blue ring octopus. He didn't like that very much, but we wanted to keep him for the exhibit, but I ended up selling it to a zoo. The blue ring octopus it came in about that big, but it could kill 20 humans in one bite. And I'm thinking, how can it bite 20 humans at once? Like, that didn't make any sense. But if you look at it online, it has enough. Is it venom or poison? To kill 20 people in like seconds. So they're very pretty. You see people like picking them up on the wild, and it's one of the animals that you do not want to touch. You know, we had it. I was feeding them, but I wasn't letting them go close to me. Amazing animal. But the problem with octopus is they don't live long. You know, I always tried to convince him, let's get a giant red octopus, like we'll save it at the seafood market and just have it at the shop. So maybe one day I'll be able to convince him.
Well, the octopus I'm down with, like a big one.
Would you get in the tank with him?
I'll have to learn its behavior first.
How difficult is it to keep jellyfish? Like just a tank of jellyfish?
Jellyfish. I know nothing about jellyfish.
I don't have much experience with it.
Look that hard.
No, there's a vendor out there that has this little jellyfish tank now. It's like a table version. Yeah, I saw it. I think all jellyfish need is that current to help keep them suspended because they can't swim. That's all I know about them. Okay, I don't know what they eat.
Did you know jellyfish don't have a brain? And they live for millions of years without a brain? And some of us can even live that long. It's true, they don't have a brain. Like some of us.
How do they come up with the short body version of most species now?
So that's a good question, because in Asia, short body fish is very popular because they don't have giant tanks. They don't have space for giant tanks. Like let's say Taiwan is a very small country, So everybody that has tanks usually pretty small, so they want to put as many fish as they can. Short body fish don't grow as much. I think it's overbreeding. And I used to think like, oh, maybe they're putting something on the water to make short body fish. But I think it's just when you're breeding so much, you're going to have that type of deformity. And also from the wild, like when we were in Thailand, somebody offers us a short body fish they just caught on the lake. So it's like us, you know, like we have short body people, we have really tall body people. So I think fish is the same way. That's my opinion. Do you think anything different?
I think in general, short body fish have been very sought after, like you said, because it's a genetic anomaly. Out of the hundreds or thousands that they breed, a couple of pop up. I think as they're breeding more and more, it's just a percentage game. And then they collect up all these. So to us, it may look like, oh, wow, how come they have so many short body? Well, maybe they bred 100,000 to get those 150. But we're looking at that 150 pieces all in one tank. So you're like, oh, where's it coming from? It's just a perspective. Is it possible that they're experimenting with chemicals out there? Yes, it is. Do I know for sure? I don't. So I don't want to speak to something that I'm not 100% sure of. Or either that, or it's possible that they're breeding for it. Like they're genetically isolating that gene and then breeding for it as well.
But it's more popular in Asia than here. Because here, I feel like a majority of people see it as like a bad thing.
Well, I think when we're looking at monster fish, and then you see like a short body red-tailed cat that looks like a balloon, or an arowana, or a peacock bass, it looks weird to us. But if you look at goldfish, I'm not sure if that's a short body version of a carp, because it happened so long ago, right? If you look at those balloon rams, everyone loves them. Oh, they're so cute. They're so beautiful. But no one's thinking short body because we're not attaching the name short body. We're just calling them balloon. You know what I mean? It's a perspective.
Thank you guys so much.